Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. I'm Andrew Pappas. I'll be your host today, and we're going to be talking about when self-publishing makes more sense. You know, self-publishing has never been more accessible, but it's also never been more demanding. For many developers, the real challenge isn't releasing a game without a publisher, it's knowing how to build momentum, make smart decisions with limited resources, and navigate an industry that still feels uncertain. So today, we'll explore when self-publishing actually makes sense and where it can quietly introduce new risks. We discuss what it really takes to support your own launch, how teams can take more control of their release strategy, and what today's shifting business landscape means for developers considering the self-publishing path. So that's what we're going to be talking about right here today on Indie Game Movement. Hey everyone, and we're back. And today I have with us Rytis. And well, Rytis, please introduce yourself because I definitely cannot say your last name. I think it's without even trying, I think so. So please, what is your last name, Rytis?
Oh, thank you, Andrew, for having me. In my language, I would be Rytis Jadzevičius, but I had some friends because I lived in Canada for a while, so they would always say Rytis Jadzevičius.
Ah,
yeah, sounds funny for me,
dude. It sounds like it could be an awesome fighting game name, like Rytis Vicious.
yeah, it could be.
But anyways, folks, we have Rytis here with us, and he is the founder and CEO of Fluxo Games. I think I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah.
And also the board member of Lithuanian Game Developers Association and the National Association of Creative and Culture Industries in Lithuania. So it's like you got yourself really involved at the heart of games in your country, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, we are doing pretty good in games in Lithuania. We are in top 10 of European countries which creating games. Well, on the lower end, it's way too far from like France or Poland, even though Poland is our neighbor, or the Nordic countries. But we're doing our best.
Yeah, no, definitely. And please give us a quick moment and tell us what exactly is Fluxo Games and just a little snapshot of that.
Well, we started from game development, but it wasn't as successful as we started with our first game. So we picked some outsourcing services to hire some new talents, to train new employees, also while doing our new games. So we tried a bit of everything, starting back in the day with NFTs because it was paying well, and the technology sounded interesting, with mobile games, doing for others and trying our own title, which wasn't successful, like most of the mobile titles these days.
Yeah, they're tough. It's competitive.
And yeah, for a couple of years, we've done a few government projects which were huge, like educational technologies and for simulation to new custom officers. That was really interesting because we had technology with multiplayer, VR, and PC to have everything working and have like realistic graphics. Besides that, we've been doing our own games. So we recently released Book Smugglers. It's based on Lithuanian history, like 19th century, while we are occupied by Russian Empire, and they had a ban for any Latin books, any Lithuanian language or letters for 40 years. So we had a guys who were smuggling not drugs or cigarettes, but books back in the day.
Wow, that's so interesting, and I love projects that do that too. Like give kind of like a taste of history while also like gamifying it too. It's so interesting because it really can create some of those tensions, I guess, and that we can kind of
Mhm.
experience firsthand for ourselves, in these types of games and stuff. So that's really cool to hear, and I know we're going to talk a bit more about it too. But still, like sounds like you had your hands in a lot of different things over the years and stuff. And hey, like so many of us probably have been, because we got to learn how to be resourceful. We got to like pick up new skills and stuff and everything else just to, do what we can to keep, putting out these great experiences that we're so passionate about.
Yeah, I'm feeling that hunger from my childhood, to
Yeah.
try new things, to see what's inside, how it goes, to see if I'm capable person to do. So, well, my company's been for 7 years, and it's been tough 7 years with good sides and downfalls, but it's it's tough, but it's really rewarding in terms of you see yourself in different colors. You see that if you take something, you can make almost anything.
I love that, and that's so true, right? With everything that we do, even if it's not just games, folks, like there's so much potential that we have, and I think you just like gave us a quick snapshot of that how it encompasses all that for you and stuff, and I'm sure a lot of us can relate. Now, as we get into our conversation here, we need to first get to know you a little bit more. We appreciate what you shared so far, but we want to know some extra fun little details. And to do that, folks, we have the Q box round, just a few random questions I've got prepared here for Rytis. And I know I was in my head, I'm like, that's not how you're supposed to say it, Andrew. It's like I'm saying Rytis because it sounds so cool to say it that way. All right.
Well,
So
it's a right way.
okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm always, and just to digress for a moment, I'm always just super cognizant and mindful of like how people's names are intended to be said in their native language too, because it's like so many people are like, "Oh, my name's Mike." I'm like, I have a feeling your name isn't really Mike. It's just you're saying that so it's easier for people to say, or it doesn't sound weird to them. Like, oh, but it's really Michelle. But, Anyways, I digress, folks. All
Yeah.
right, Q box round. Quick few questions here. Rytis, are you ready?
Sure.
Awesome. All right, first, what was your childhood favorite game?
I played a lot of old Blizzard games like StarCraft and Warcraft, and probably those were one of my favorite ones because it had so much depth, so good story, and the mechanics was so good. Later on, I found out about multiplayer features,
Mm,
and Warcraft had like a huge library of custom maps. So that was like one game which had like hundreds or thousands of other games. Like even some genres came from the Warcraft 3, like tower defense, or the maybe you called of a game Dota. So
yep. Yep. Sweet. All right.
so yeah, that's probably my yeah. Also Diablo was cool.
Nice. Yeah. Good lineup right there from your childhood. All right, next is what's the most helpful or impactful advice you ever received?
Mm, well, there were so many, advices, but one of those which stick with me was fail fast. I still sometimes can't make it because I'm optimist. I'm positive person. I'm trying to find some good things even through the darkest of times. But yeah, sometimes I should cut some things way faster.
Mm, that good one too. Last and not least here on the show is, and also the staple. What game are you playing now?
Actually, like last week, me and a few of my buddies, we picked off Warhammer, Warhammer 3, and we haven't been having blast with it. Like every evening after work, we will join in and have some like 3 or 5 hour sessions.
Oh, sick. Yep.
We're fighting some kind of random wars, but it also has a good feature because some turns takes like forever for some guys. But if you like having a fight, your guys can join in on that fight, take control of some of the units, so you are not bored. You always invent constant war.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, appreciate you sharing all those things in the Q box round. And now let's get to the conversation. And as I shared with everyone earlier in the introduction, what we're going to talk about today is when self-publishing makes more sense. Because we're always thinking about, hey, there's that potential and an idea of self-publishing, but at what point should we really consider it and stuff? And there's lots of factors that go into this. So to kick things off, Rytis, I'm curious. When teams think about self-publishing, they often imagine, more freedom, but what responsibilities do they underestimate?
Well, I will start with disclaimer. It's not for everyone. Like you can be like best in programming or best in art, but if you don't know what marketing is, you probably should get some kind of help. And I'm not talking only about like publishing possibilities, but maybe some other guy or girl who's good at it and can help you out. So sorry, I digressed. And
No, it's a
what
good
was
point.
the question?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just like, we imagine this freedom that we could get with like self-publishing, right? It's self-liberating in a way.
Yeah.
But what are the types of responsibilities or things that teams often underestimate when it comes to self-publishing?
Amount of emails you need to write.
Yeah.
Like to be fair, well, I did also email campaign, but I sent like in general probably more than 10,000 emails.
Oh, for like
So
influencers and press and coverage,
yes,
that type of stuff. Yep.
yes, yeah. That's really tough. So you need to have your pipeline ready, and it's not easy to start with. It's completely different world, and yeah, you need to understand at least basics of marketing before you dive into it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point too, because it's like we often think, oh, even if we're doing these things ourselves, we need an influencer campaign. And what was that number again? I think it's important to hear that number again. How many emails you?
More than 10,000.
Yeah,
And I think we could do more.
yeah, and that's an important factor that I think a lot of people miss out on, and they're like, oh, I'll do this campaign, and what's good, right? So let's say, actually, let me ask you this: do you know what your roughly your return rate was? Like, what percentage of people actually like got back to you out of that 10,000?
From 1 to 3%, something around that.
Yeah, and guess what? That number is pretty much very common across the board, regardless of how many you reach out to. It's pretty consistent. So I love that you called that out too, because it's like, let's think about the time investment that required. And again, like you said too, it's always good to get help from certain parties and people, but the time that it took to do that was a lot. Now, there's a lot of learning that happened and too, but again, that's what we're here talking about when it makes more sense. And it's like, if you have the time, means, and resources, if you also want to invest into that for yourself to learn these things and stuff too, those are all these other factors, that come into play. Now, that is a good example that kind of leads into another area I want to explore a bit too, about like, the reality of things, what you kind of picked up and learned. Well, like, what made you realize that self-publishing might actually be the better path for your studio's game compared to working, let's say, with a publisher? Like, what factors came into play to make that call?
Well, if we go back a few years, we had one deal with one small Polish publisher. I'm not gonna mention the names, but the thing was, we had a deal. They should have been doing marketing. We've been doing a little bit of that, but from their end, it's been like 10 months and nothing is happening. And they asked for a build, we asked for the press kits and stuff, and they did nothing. So we voided the agreement, and we started doing everything ourselves. It wasn't an easy path because even though I have some experience in marketing, I've been doing a couple years in marketing agency, digital marketing, but it's completely different compared to the games marketing, because and also the marketing, like a whole market is changing.
Yeah.
We are having so much noise on the internet. We having so much like new games, new products, influencers popping up and giving some random apps. So you're getting so much noise on the internet in your head. So it's really hard to stand out. So we could have tried like more niche approach, but we tried what we could do, like with guns blazing, like sending hundreds, thousands of emails, doing those type of campaigns. It's not an easy, because you need to have like a list of people who to send. So yeah, that was one of the things. Other was going for press. So we also talked with other devs who done it by themselves. Some of them shared the contacts. They helped me, I helped them, because sometimes, when you go to conferences, you have some warm contacts with some good media people. And if you write them something that you released or did something new, they could release it like straight away, because you're like in good terms with them. So that helps. So if you're going for the conferences, don't forget to talk with the media as well. Because it gives the boost of wish lists. So media, it's not like the main medium where should you focus, but it's one of the mediums that could bring some noise to your game. So that is other thing. Influencers, so yeah, you could how to say, tackle them with a mass email campaign, which is has some success. But it takes time, because for influencer, especially if it's has more than 10,000, it's get subs, it's gonna get a lot of emails. So some of them wouldn't notice you, and the ones who do, they still need to find the timeline in their own schedule to have your game reviewed or played. So it could take up to a couple months easily.
Yeah, all those things are like important factors to consider. It's like, like you said, resources, but resources as also in a lot of these cases is viewed as time. Time being the most valuable resource when you're self-publishing. Yes. Because it's like not only the time it takes to, let's say, write those emails, but also the time it takes to pre-plan, like, and how does that coincide with development and everything else. And really interesting stuff. Now, you mentioned earlier about, like, in your particular case, it was a matter of, hey, the publisher that we did have wasn't really fulfilling their end of the agreement and therefore had to go somewhere else. Now, I'm curious, kind of relating to that a little bit, like, at what point would you say should a team seriously consider self-publishing instead of even pursuing a publisher in the first place? Like what moments or signals may be raised when they're getting ready to that part where they're really considering about, that go-to-market plan, or considering about getting support, or really making that push to creating a lot of awareness?
Well, from my perspective, like in my studio's case, I'm not gonna have like most of the publishing deals if it doesn't go with the money. Like if you get something up front, if they believe in your project, they already have investment, and well, you have at least some signals that they gonna perform to get that money back and get some revenue. Otherwise, if you're not getting money, well, you need to know the company really, really well. I would say like most of the publishing companies, they probably have like per year, even small ones like 20 games or more, and those who perform the most, they gonna work with them, and the other games probably will get just like release boost or demo boost, and that's it, because it doesn't make sense for them to invest time in the product which will give less revenue for them. So they're gonna invest in those games who are the closest to the hit title.
Yeah, and I think those are important call outs too, because it's like, I know you were primarily talking about like the publisher and what maybe that agreement, or not even the agreement, maybe just what they're signaling, or what you can kind of read through between the lines of what is it they're actually going to deliver on, right? And that's ultimately, those signals are going to what give you the better idea of, hey, is this worth pursuing or not? Because maybe the publishers that would be great, what you would feel are great fits, don't feel that way. And then the ones that are giving you the time, maybe they're giving off those signals that like, hey, we'll give you this boost and that's it. They're not going to say that directly in those instances, right? So that's why I think I'm going to call out what you said earlier. Know the company very well is so important, because through that, and again, it can be tricky, like I said, like reading between the lines to really understand what could be at stake, or what at least that relationship may look like. And that's going to help, as you're calling out, really determine whether you should self-publish or not, because you can't just don't go with a publisher just because it's a publisher.
Yeah, and most of companies do that. It's a publisher. We need to get the publishing. Doesn't matter about like agreement. We want to be published, and they think that if they are publisher, they probably will have success.
Yeah.
And that's a bit naive way of thinking, I would say.
And very misleading.
Yeah, very misleading. And even good publishers, the biggest ones like Devolver or Hooded Horse, they are really picky, and they won't go overboard. They will do what's in the best interest for them, but they won't do like that extra mile if they don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point too about like that extra mile, right? Because like it's important what that extra mile can equate to. So in your case, like when you're marketing your game yourself or whatever, or even other projects that you're familiar with, what would you say are the activities that actually move the needle versus the ones that just feel productive? Because I know that so many of us get caught in this trap of, oh, we're busy, we feel busy and stuff, and you're stressed out, and the next thing you know, like, how come nothing's happening? So what are those needle moving activities that we should really focus on, and not the stuff that just keeps us busy and feeling like we're doing great?
That's really good question, because the first thing that I thought is like, well, it's in case of our game. For some games, it moves the needle, so it depends on the genre, on the type of the game that you're creating. For example, for us, like creating videos for YouTube, TikTok, it didn't move needle that much. But when we took some time to create like a release trailer, to have it good with voiceover, it's not the best, but I think it's good trailer. I noticed it got some traction. Like, for example, one of the bigger YouTuber channels who post only new game trailers picked it up, and in that day's trailer, our trailer was having like most of the views.
Mm.
And it's like indie niche game. So we got like in one day like 12,000 views, and others were getting like from 2 to 5,000. So I think the trailer is really, really important. Besides the trailer, don't forget about the thumbnails, especially on Steam.
Yep.
Invest in that, give a lot of time, do A and B testings, like which is going better. It should be readable, it should be clear, it should represent your game. Maybe even a little bit clickbaity. I don't think we've done that enough. And I think we could improve in the future with thumbnail, but in general, that's really important things. In terms of marketing, you need to think, because with every game you can't have like a completely same cycle of marketing. For some games you should invest more into creating videos. For others, maybe emails or writing posts, Reddit, Twitter, Blue Sky. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like that fine balance too. And I just want to make sure that I understood when you said clickbaity, you're talking about clickbaity, but delivering on that promise, not switching bait.
Yeah.
Because I know clickbait sometimes can be misinterpreted, and understandably so, depending on how certain people use it. We all know those people who use it for the bad reasons. We see them all the time on the web, but yeah, but still, you want to grab that attention, right? And you called out to another thing too, as like sometimes the answer is dependent stuff. Look, folks, we're all familiar. I would say most of us listening here probably all familiar with the core things. We've heard it in numerous places and everything. The trailer, that key art, capsule art, thumbnails, all those things are big factors. Events are another, right? But we also know that, okay, and sure, we can like do whatever we can to have those things happen, but how many times are you going to make multiple trailers, right? How many times can you get into every single event that you think you have a slightest chance of getting into? We all know how that plays out. It doesn't always work in our favor. For some people, it does great. So, Rytis, when you were calling out for like, the other activities, right, that sometimes we could get carried away with, I think it's important to call out, and I want your thoughts on this too, of we see those big needle moving things we just identified. But then there's the other stuff like we're like, oh, well, what about, social media and stuff? And I think it's really about, I'll call it as a balancing act in terms of having a little bit of these big beats and then having a little things that kind of sustain and engage and keep people, around and coming back, that then will support and amplify those other big beats later. And I think that's what you were calling out too in terms of the depends, because again, some formats are going to work so much better for some games versus others. And it's really about finding that nice blend between the two that really can create something that sustains that energy, that momentum, but also that peaks it too, and gets new blood into that momentum.
Yeah, if your game is flashy, it's way better than writing that it is flashy. Just show it.
Mm-hmm.
And for our case, our game was more text heavy, so it was a really tough assignment, to market that type of game, because we didn't have that much of like new videos that we could show. Even from the gameplay, it wasn't as successful as finding the right audiences. So you need to analyze what is similar games to yours and try to appeal to those kind of audiences, which could be quite successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to kind of shift things a little bit too, because as it relates to publishing, because when we're taking on some of these tasks as, serving as a self publishing, we often think at first and foremost it's marketing and then obviously money. These are the things we kind of lead in with that publishing agreement and stuff. So we focus on addressing those part, but beyond those aspects, beyond marketing, what parts of running a self-published game tend to surprise developers the most? Because I'm sure there's lots of other types of things that either is not considered or anything, and they can kind of blindside or maybe limit us in some situations. And what are those types of things, especially as they might relate more to production than marketing?
Because when you started the question, I was thinking about marketing, and at first for me it was like when you send so many emails, you don't get response or positive response, or everyone is asking for money.
Yep.
So even though you shouldn't give up, if you believe in your game, you could still reach the right type of influencers who could be interested. But for me, it fell a bit of, the myth of Sisyphus.
Mm-mm.
It's a Greek myth, by the way. So
Are you implying I should know this because I'm Greek?
Yeah. Sorry.
That's fine. Let's hear it though.
Yeah, so it's the guy who needs to roll the boulder up the hill.
Oh,
every day.
yes. Okay, yep.
So it felt a little bit like that. And I knew that our game is not going to be a huge success. I know it's probably will have like a long tail, which is nice, but the effort, the time, the money that we gave it's probably not going to fully cover it.
Okay. So,
but it gave us a lot of great expertise, and I think with that expertise in the future, if we will manage to use it rightly, we could gain like tenfold results.
Okay. I want to dive into that a little bit because you made an interesting point, and I know some of us sometimes will feel this way too, where you were saying I didn't think I would get maybe as much as I had these expectations in terms of what that return would be, right? So as it related to what I was asking, then let's say if you had that expectation, then when we look at other things from the production side, what does that look like for things like, or what was your process or thoughts when you were looking at things like porting, like, different platforms and stuff, or maybe localization, like how else do we want to, distribute this and stuff? Because those are all, I would say production related, even though they're more into the distribution side. And if you have that expectation, now how does it influence those decisions on things like that, or even other types of things that are, production development related?
Well, I'm a very curious guy, and I wanted to try more languages. Some languages made sense, some was a bit. And it was costly because it's text heavy. So we did 7 languages. And some of them we could have done it without it. Like we could have had less languages that probably would made like 95% of the sales that we have right now. So it's you should calculate more. Unless you have like a bigger budget and want to test some things or have some ideas of marketing that maybe those markets you could reach. Well, I'm mostly talking about like Asian countries. With German language, I would say for long term and in general, I think it's success. Actually, before that, we had in mind even more languages, like 12 languages. But when you look through your wish lists, I noticed that Spanish-speaking countries don't pick it up. So we cut that, and French-speaking countries don't pick that up. So we cut it. But I still wanted to try, like, with Japanese, I had some of the good media people who would post some articles, some stuff. So it was safer bet. And I still believe it could be good because we also doing porting to Nintendo Switch. I think those type of games should go well on Switch, maybe even better than PC. I hope so. Fingers crossed. And for other platforms, I'm not really sure yet. Like Xbox is more like live action, fast paced type of games. PlayStation 5 have some interesting titles. But I'm not sure if we're gonna do port for PlayStation yet.
Yeah. And I love kind of how your breakdown of that simple process too is like, hey, look, ideally, yeah, we want to lead with everything, but then we started to kind of like pull back a little bit, look at some information that we had, and determine, all right, now based off of results that we're receiving, this is kind of the direction that we want to go in. And then even from that, you're like, hey, I might not feel 100% about this, but I feel at least comfortable enough that we could test it out. We have some channels or means to get like decent coverage in these areas too, to then further validate and test. And I feel a lot more confident about these types of tests and stuff. And I love this too, because I think maybe to that degree, I don't necessarily know if it like surprised you or whatever. It could have been just part of your initial like almost inherited process that you have. But for some people too, because you still covered a lot of languages, and the amount of work and effort still required. And I don't know whether you hired services to do it or if you guys did it directly, but still, even if it's getting done, they're still learning. Because I bet you to some aspect that testing, you could be like, oh, there might be other cultural factors that we didn't account for at the time that maybe we now we're more in tune to in the future.
Yeah, the testing part, because you pick the localization partners for the first time and you need somebody to test it out. For some languages, it was way easier than I expected. For other languages, it was hard. Probably the Chinese was the hardest for me to find somebody to test it out if the localization company did a good job. So even need to go through my cousin. He had a Chinese ex, and she did the testing, and yeah, it's a bit funny.
Well,
But
it sounded like it worked out, and that they're still on good
yeah,
terms. So
yeah, that's a good thing. But still, it's like a favor thing. When
yeah.
I now I feel like I over favor
Well,
probably both of
that
them.
will happen too, right? But that's all we're here for. We're here to help each other out, and then return that favor and help someone else in those moments that they need and things like that, right? That's what one of the things I love about this industry.
Yeah.
As we're coming on time here and whatnot, I am curious too. Is if a team wants to, let's say, maybe not even consider, but let's say they've done it once before and they want to keep self-publishing as a real option. Maybe they don't default to it, but they want to keep that open. What would you say are the capabilities they should start building early in development or be mindful of early in production? What are some key things to really account for?
Some of the companies, what they do, they test out like early builds of their projects, or even if you don't even have a demo or prototype, you maybe have only one room, but you want to test out that feeling, so they put it on social media to see how people respond. So it can give like a really early indications if you are moving in the right direction. It's not going to be like 100% foolproof, but still it could give you some signals. Also depends on a game that you're creating.
So
Because, yeah.
So you're not necessarily saying about like, hey, we should consider these types of systems or these tools, resources, or even a network of people we could rely on for X, Y, or Z services if and when we need them. What you're calling out really sounds like more upstream, meaning like, hey, let's validate and get signals behind this before we even push it forward to those steps in establishing those types of systems or networks.
Yeah, it could save you like hundreds or thousands of hours and tens of thousands of dollars or even 100,000 of dollars when you create 3 years for 3 years one game and you didn't test it out or didn't test it enough with the people with audiences because yeah, it could give signals very early, and maybe you should move like in different direction. Because I think what was the biggest problem for us, we picked maybe too niche of a genre, and in some ways maybe we expanded too much with like 3D graphics. We could done something simpler and maybe released it way earlier when we did it right now.
Yeah, and that goes back to what we were calling out about before too, the time factor. Because if you think about it, it's not just about the funds. And if anything, I mean, I feel I hope most of you don't care that I keep repeating this example with BioShock and calling out to Ken Levine, and his whole focus was, I want to build this experience based off of limitations. And what I love about that so much, it's one that we can all probably identify with, but it's a common thing that you can see throughout any industry, throughout any creative process, where through limitations can come creativity. And what you're calling out to, and not only just creativity, but also the fact of what else that can do. And what you just said too, like, hey, look, we could have went from 3D to maybe something else, reduce that time frame. And when funding and money is limited, like, that can cut exponentially. It goes back to your advice that you're saying, fail fast,
Yeah.
right? And it's not necessarily saying you're going to fail, so do it quickly. It's more of like, hey, we want to learn, but we want to learn as effectively and quickly as possible. And what you just called out is great, I think, because you reduce that dev cycle. You might change the direction. So therefore, the dev cycle is reduced. The costs are probably less because it's less intensive. You're not doing all sorts of different types of modeling and all these things that take a lot more time. And then you still have an experience, and it could, who knows, perform even better too. But even if it doesn't,
Yeah.
those cost savings are up front. Right? It's not after the fact of like seeing what it gains. It's like, hey, we have this budget. Oh, look, we cut the budget in half because we decided to change this thing. We got it to market faster, so now we're learning much faster than we would have if we extended that by like 12 months. So it's really interesting because I think these are the types of things, the validation and really considering like what else can we do to downscope or whatever, is to still provide a similar experience. And that can make all the difference in the world. That can mean like 4, 3, however many more games after that, giving you that ability to keep going versus one big one, then finding out that ate everything up.
Yeah. Also, I would add up, if you see that your game is dead, well, don't try to beat the dead horse,
Yeah.
move to something
Yeah.
new.
I know.
Because I know for developers it happens a lot. You invested in your game, you love it so much, you just want it to succeed, but the reality is quite harsh. Most of the games don't succeed that well, and maybe you should kill some of your games, which is really sad and really hard sometimes.
Yeah. And no, and I have to drop this real quick, but a few episodes ago, we did cover an episode called "Killing Your Games." It was a few back. So if anyone's interested, this might be a great segue to then go back to that conversation, or if you haven't listened to it, go there. But otherwise, but yeah, you bring up a very important point that I think we all need to consider, of that possibility. Because again, if we push too hard in what we're talking about here or in other scenarios, like you said, it's like that resources, time, your well-being and mental health could be
Yes.
saved and put into something else that will just rekindle that fire. So
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe the next game is going to be our hit. But if we have a couple minutes more, I still want to. I still have a question for you,
of course.
Andrew. Yeah, we talked before a little bit, and yeah, if you would be a developer, not developer, publisher, what kind of publisher would you be? What would you do? Like indie publisher, not the big publisher, but you need to survive. You need to think. Oh, let's do that thought experiment. That
Oh, wow.
because you
No
have
one's
a
asking
background
me
in
questions
marketing,
on this.
but you have a background in marketing, and I think you probably would have some good insights on that as well.
Well, I appreciate you asking me. And no, I'm not sidestepping. No, if I were to be a publisher, and this is kind of cool because I have like thought about this like lots of different times. Honestly, without putting like a lot of extra other thought and things like that, well, one would be what's an area that I would feel super excited about and hone in on. I strongly believe that any project can do really well, but it's also a matter of identifying who the right audience is. So as a publisher, I'd want to like identify a core audience, and I would probably emulate things from publishers like Hooded Horse. I'll just say them as a great example, and that's when we were talking about earlier, right? Is what you were alluding to is that they started with Forex Grand Strategies, and they encompass a lot of strategy games and getting into strategy, RPG, and kind of that realm. And they know that space really well. They know the audience really well there, and they know what to look for in these particular projects that they focus on. And you could see the track record. If you can compare their results, percentages and stuff to even big companies, they strive that. And also they operate in a very fair manner with the partnerships. They treat their partners as almost like they're practically, I don't know if I'd go this far, but like practically family. Like they're one of the team, right? They really hone in on that. So I think there's a lot of things going on there. There's the brand, the relationship and the trust that they establish with their partners, the relationship and trust that they establish with their player base too. And that's a really important thing when a publisher can have that recognition with a player base, not just who their partners is. And then obviously making sure you're delivering on those experiences. But a key and focus for this is really that they're just honing in on that one experience. Now, let's say, what else? So I think it hones it down because you find something that you're passionate about, you believe in, and if that's the case, you're more likely going to push that extra mile if it's needed, right? You want to be practical with putting extra effort in. But let's say you asked me that, and my answer is like, well, I would like to do different types of experiences because I love all games, right? Well, if that's the case, what I would do in that case then would be, what is the common denominator? What is the common thread? And identifying what those common threads are within these projects that might be across different genres. And again, that could be any number of things. And I think a lot of other studios, I would say maybe Devolver is a little bit more on that side of things. Their portfolio is a bit broader. But there is a common thread. There's a thread would be maybe a vibe or a certain aspect of it. And well, I can't recall if they ever like publicly share this information, but I bet you at least internally they have some pretty detailed guidelines that they set for themselves to establish not only how they position themselves and represent themselves as a publisher, but also what those projects are, what they're looking for, and everything else. So to summarize,
like Team 17, for example, I'm just looking right now at their portfolio, and they have. It's like I don't see the pattern,
But so those are the things I would do. But I mean, to take this back to our conversation, it's an important thing to consider whether you're looking for a publisher or doing it yourself, because those things I mentioned in terms of what you were asking me about, hey, what would I look for in doing publishing and stuff? But it comes down to, it's no different than anything else. What is that core main audience you're serving? How do you find them? And how do you do everything possible to build that trust with them, to know everything you possibly can about them, and that way to serve them? It's really no different. The only difference between the two is just the models obviously are a bit different. But I think at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. It comes down to the product that you're making that's you're passionate about and very focused on, the game, the experience. Then it comes down to the brand, like how you represent yourselves and how you build those relationships and trust. And then it's the model. And what does that model look like? Like, what is that core experience that you're trying to showcase, extract, and everything? And all those things go together and really build things up. So it again, like I said, it's no different than if what you're building up and what a publisher is. I think those are the key things. So, yeah, I appreciate you asking.
Yeah.
It's I know we kind of flip things a bit, but really, it puts things into perspective.
I was curious. Yeah.
Well, I know we're definitely coming on time here, but, considering we talked a lot, what are a few things that you think people should take away based off of our conversation today?
Self-publishing is not for everyone. Like mathematically, if you developer, a programmer, you earn like $50 an hour, for example. And if you start learning how to do marketing, it will take you so much time. So it's better for you to do your work or do some outsourcing, whatever, and hire somebody who could do that for you instead of you learning every kind of ropes. You need to know the basics. So you should, know some of the stuff, just to overview if the guy is doing good job. But besides that, it's taking so much of your time. So keep that in mind before you start self-publishing, or if you don't have any other options, you also should think, is your game gonna perform? If it's worth delivering it, and if you are stubborn like me, for example, well, you need to dedicate a lot of time. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, absolutely love those points and everything that you shared with us today. Rytis, can't thank you enough for being here today. But before we go, what are some links, or where can people find your game, Book Smuggler? Please share those with us, or even other ways people can connect with you.
Yeah, actually, it's on Steam right now. I think in a couple of months we will have a Switch as well, the first one. Also, I hope in like a week or a bit more on Steam we'll have like fully functioning, like fully polished version that will work on Steam Deck. Right now it's working, but it's still not like as nice. It's gonna be in like weeks time. So try it if you like interesting takes on the narrative, if you like a historical type of games. I know it's not for everyone, but still I would appreciate if you would just give it a look.
Awesome. Well, folks, check that out. Those links will be in the show notes. Rytis, it has been great. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Andrew. You're a great guy and amazing host.
Well, thank you. Hey, everyone. Thank you for listening to another episode of Indie Game Movement. I'm Andrew Pappas, your host, and the show's producer is Mustafa Price. Show notes for this episode can be found by visiting rengenmarketing.com, the number episode of the show. Rengen Marketing is a consulting marketing company that helps indie devs with their marketing efforts. Whether you need guidance with your game's marketing strategy or could use a free marketing plan template, then please visit www.rengenmarketing.com and take action. A special thanks to Dakota Saw for Season 2's opening theme and Melissa Gellis for the new logo design. And as always, thanks for being such great listeners, and we'll see you next time on Indie Game Movement.